Welcome to Dodgers Dawgs as part of the Dodgers Daily Network. Casey Porter here, joined by Coach Barakoff. Coach Barakoff's going to be joining us for about the first, I'd say 30, 45 minutes of our broadcast today. And then Austin Brubaker is going to join in, and Austin's going to have a great take because he actually lives in Michigan. He knows all about the Tigers, Jack Flaherty, and all of that. So, Coach, it has been a crazy day. If you're involved with Oklahoma City Dodgers, or not Oklahoma City Dodgers, Oklahoma City Baseball Club, it's been the craziest thing of all time. 9 position players for a AAA team tonight. It's been crazy up and down the line. It went down to the wire. The Chicago White Sox greatly overrated what a rental would be worth the longer that went, and the Dodgers just absolutely cashed in.
Yeah, this last deal that was made tonight, I mean, yes. It's hard seeing prospects go, but it's nice to see like a guy like Miguel Vargas getting an opportunity to play somewhere, and there's nothing going to block him. And the Dodgers did a great job. I've seen a lot of different people rating their take on this. I mean, I haven't seen anything lower than an A-, so I think the Dodgers did well. It wasn't flashy for sure, but we got what we needed, definitely.
When you say we got what we needed, start at the top and work your way down.
Well, I like that we got a reliever that has a lot to prove. I like that we got a pitcher that has a lot to prove, a starting pitcher. I like that we got a defensive outfielder. I like that. It gives us more flexibility in the outfield. I like that the Edman guy, I like him. I know he's only been playing Double-A because he's been injured, but I like what he brings to the table. You got Rosario that's been with the club. He's not new to what's going on. And we got him for, what did we give up? An 8th-rated prospect who's our 3rd or our 2nd-rated catcher in the organization. We kept Rushing. We didn't get rid of Pages. We kept Outman. I'd say it's a great take.
Yeah, absolutely. And we did not get rid of the 2 guys that I was really the most worried about getting rid of, I think, were the 2 arms, and then Gavin Stone as well. I know Gavin Stone, I know there were some people talking about trading him. I don't think that was ever a consideration. And then the brilliance, hey, this trade deadline for the Dodgers, I've been saying this for a month now. It started when they brought up River Ryan and Justin Robleski. And the reason is, you look at Chicago, and I've been saying this, and people were calling me crazy, like, yeah, this is the little 10-2-10 foil for me to think that way. But when you run out Justin Robleski and he's throwing 98-mile-an-hour fastballs that great major league hitters can't hit, and he's commanding the inside part of the plate, and he's throwing good sinkers, and you see the potential to the slider-type pitches, and then you throw out River Ryan, and he's doing the same thing, and he just acts like he's been a major leaguer for 15 years. Then you walk in those negotiations with Chicago and you go, you don't want to deal Flaherty? Yeah, or you want to ask for Dalton Rushing, Diego Cartaya, Justin Robleski, and River Ryan? No thanks, man. Hey, we're good with what we got. We like our young arms. We think Yamamoto is going to come back. We like the fact that Glass now, we got him in the offseason. Gavin Stone was talk of being an all-star at mid-break. We think Bobby Miller is going to figure it out in AAA Oklahoma City. Nah, we're good, man. Y'all sit on Jack Flaherty. You're not having a good season to begin with. You're going to lose him for nothing at the end of the year. We're good. We'll see how you do at the 11th hour.
Yeah, you've hit it, and I think if you go back and listen to the shows, you and I have agreed. I feel good now. I don't think people wanted to give up players. Look what the Padres gave up for a rental. Yeah, and Dodgers didn't do that. The Dodgers didn't panic. I think the Dodgers fan base panicked, and I am willing to say that. I think the Dodgers fan base wanted these high-end names. And I think there's a few of us that have been saying it all along. The teams were just not going to do that. This 3rd wild card is not teams are not wanting to deal. Yeah. And there are these rentals that are going out. And again, you're right. We did not give up our top end pitching. We did not give up our top prospect in Dalton Rushing. Pages stayed. Yohenry Vargas stayed. All these guys we kept. And I thought we took in a major haul with Flaherty getting him. That was a major deal. I thought we fleeced them on that deal. Yeah. So I like what we did. It was not flashy, but flashy doesn't win World Series sometimes.
Yeah, I'm not as big on the category of saying that that was a fleece by the Dodgers. I think that's a win-win on both sides. I think Trey Sweeney is a very good player. I think he's going to be a very good player in Detroit. You know, he played in the Yankee system. I talked to him, hey, playing in the PCL, one of the questions I asked was, have you ever been to California? And his response was, yeah, like once, but he said it's been neat going to all these new cities and seeing all new things that I've never seen before. That's an adjustment period. So he's going to go back back to the East Coast. I know Detroit's not exactly East Coast, but further east than where he's at now, in places that he's familiar with. He went to college at Eastern Illinois there, so he's familiar with that area. There's going to be a little bit more familiarity with him, and then there's also going to be opportunity. I know they have Javier Baez, but hey, they've got to pay Javier Baez whether he's a shortstop or whether Trey Sweeney's a shortstop. They have a good crop of young players. If they think Trey Sweeney, if he gets in there and he starts doing well, and they think that if he gets to Toledo, which is the AAA affiliates of the Detroit Tigers, the Mud Hens there, if he gets in Toledo and starts killing it like I think he will, and then they call him up at the end of this year, then he has a good offseason, a good spring training, and they deem that he is their future shortstop. Like I said, they've got to pay Javier Baez one way or the other. You might as well have the best player at shortstop. So there is definitely a world out there. Hey, Tyrone Lorenzo hit a 111-mile-an-hour single the other night. He had a 104-mile-an-hour home run. He's popped in games consistently sub 1.8. This is a guy that has a massive amount of potential. There is a world where Trey Sweeney becomes a really good major league shortstop for a long period of time. Tyrone Lorenzo, 3 or 4 years from now, becomes a Salvador Perez type player. He's a switch hitter. And the Detroit Tigers get every bit as equal a value as what the Dodgers ever get out of Jack Flaherty. So I don't see it as a fleece. I see it as both sides kind of getting a good haul as far as what they both need.
Great points you touched on. I mean, you and I see Sweeney every day. We're big fans of him. First-round draft pick from the Yankees, 2021. So he obviously is a very good player. I'm excited for him. And the catcher, again, when you're a big-time Rush Dalton fan, it was like, and Will Smith is signed to 2033. So you got to figure out like that's a good move for the Dodgers, good move for the Tigers. They get their catcher of the future. And we get a guy at this point that was, a 2.94 ERA in Flaherty. So and he's got a home in L.A. from what I've read. So it makes sense.
He grew up there, yeah.
So Fleece, you're right.
From Burbank, I think, yeah.
Yeah, and so Fleece might have not been the right word, but I like what the Dodgers got out of it. I like what we got, and I like that Sweeney's going to get an opportunity. So,
what is Brian Cashman with the Yankees doing? He trades Trey Sweeney last year for Victor Gonzalez, who he DFA'd this year. And then the Dodgers turned Trey Sweeney around for Jack Flaherty, a pitcher that he could have probably outbid the Dodgers for. So, I mean, he lost twice with Trey Sweeney and didn't get Jack Flaherty either time. I mean, what in the world is he doing, man? I mean, that was crazy, wasn't it?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because I looked into that too before we went on air, and I was looking at all that stuff, and it's like, thank goodness we're not Yankee fans.
Yeah, man.
I mean, I can't stand the Yankees to begin with, but yeah, it's Dodgers are turning all this stuff around, and it's like the Yankees didn't get any of this, and we benefited from the Yankees. So thank you. We appreciate that.
Hey, we have a good crowd logging in, Coach. Good evening, Craig. Who are the players on the roster who get sent down or DFA? That's a good question. I would have to think that, well, let's go through it. Actually, let me get the Dodgers 26-man roster up, and let's actually go through these names, Coach, and because you're going to add Kiermaier, you're going to add
Rosario.
Say it again.
Rosario.
You're going to add Edman, not Edman immediately, but you're going to add Flaherty and then Edman. Let's say there's 4 guys there that you're going to add from this, and so one of them is a pitcher. And you would think it has to be a starter for a starter, right? So who would that starter be? Is it going to be River Ryan? Is it going to be Justin Robleski? Or would it be Gavin Stone? Which one of those 3 would it be?
Well, it's not going to be Gavin Stone. I think he's a proven rotation guy now. I think it's going to be one of the 2. And I think it's going to be in terms of matchups and what they see in the upcoming schedule. That's just my guess. Yeah. I don't think you can go wrong, or, I'd like to see all of them up there. Let's just throw it out. River Ryan's going down.
River Ryan, you think?
I'm just throwing that out there. I don't know.
And here's another deal. You're getting ready to add Ryan Brazier and Brusdar Graterol back, too. So who are you going to eliminate there?
See, that's a great question.
Yeah, I mean, so you're looking at Brent Honeywell, who's done really well.
Well, and you have
you
to
got to
think
add Michael
Honeywell
Kopech.
you got to think Honeywell's replacing Yarbrough now. That was the reason you can let Yarbrough go because of Honeywell.
Kopech replaced Yarbrough.
Yeah, good call.
So
Good.
what reliever are you going to? So here are the pitchers: Anthony Bonda, Tyler Glasnow, Brent Honeywell, Daniel Hudson, Joe Kelly, Clayton Kershaw, Michael Kopech, Evan Phillips, River Ryan, Gavin Stone, Blake Trinan, Alex Vesia, Justin Robleski. And you got to add Brusdar Graterol and and Ryan Brazier to that. So, man, there's some tough decisions to be made right there. And then position player wise, Nick Ahmed probably is going to be the one that gets cut. Kevin Biggio. So that makes room for Kevin Kiermaier.
Outman's going down. Outman,
yeah. So Outman. So you got a Kiermaier and then Edman, and then who else do you have to add to that?
And then you've got Rosario.
So that's going to be Ahmed, Outman, and Biggio. So there's your players. So position players wise, Outman, Biggio, and Ahmed. Pitching wise, man, well, of course, it's been Yarbrough so far for Kopech. You got that taken care of. Now for Flaherty, you're saying it probably River Ryan, not Robleski?
Well, it could be Robo and River Ryan, right? I mean, that's what you got to assume, correct?
And that blocks Landon Knack again. That pretty much guarantees that he's, unless there's injury or they run into a situation where they need depth, that makes it more difficult for him. And then we haven't figured out which relievers, Brusdar Graterol or Ryan Brazier. I mean,
Honeywell.
So is Kopech better than Graterol or Brazier?
You know, I watched both those guys pitch in OKC, and they look pretty doggone good right now. But I got to assume Vesia is not going down. You need that left-handed arm. Maybe it's going to be Honeywell. I mean, that's the only logical one to me. You're not dropping Vesia. You're not dropping Kirsch.
Yeah.
You're not dropping Stone. He's proven he's a rotation guy.
Sure.
Honeywell. Or is somebody going to go on the IL?
Yeah, and Honeywell has been absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
So that's, I mean, you already had a big time roster crunch, so you're already going to have one. So the shortstop deal, let me ask you this, is if Edman ends up being the shortstop, because it looked like Kiermaier probably is going to play center field, is Edman a better shortstop than Miguel Rojas?
Well, I think we have to look at it from a standpoint, how long is Rojas going to be out for? That's my concern. Is Rojas hurt more than we think with this move that's being made? And on the same side, is Muncy ever going to return this year? Every time he gets on the field, there's a setback.
So is Edman going to play third base, or is Rojas going to play third base?
Well, I would.
Is Mookie going to play shortstop?
Well, everybody knows my take is Mookie stays at short. I am okay with that. So my take might not be as good as yours on this. I think you're going to see a rotation, Rojas, Edman at third, because I don't see Muncy coming back. I'm concerned about Muncy.
Yeah, I think Edman, yeah. Well, I'm very concerned about Muncy. I think everybody assumed that the Dodgers got Edman to play center field, and he's only played 44 games in center field his entire career.
No.
And they were all but two of them were last year. And so I know that he's been a 5-4 WAR player in the past, but that has not been in center field. That has been accumulated at second base and shortstop. Now, I do think he was I don't know of any way of actually detailing what his WAR metrics are per position. I tried really hard today. I even asked Austin. We couldn't quite figure out, okay, for the 44 games that he was in center field, what was his WAR metrics just for those games in center field? We couldn't figure that out. So I think people assumed that Edman was going to center, and then they go get Kiermaier, who is hitting about 198. So, I mean, are you adding offense? I mean, to me, what you needed to add, position player, you didn't need to add versatility. You had plenty of versatile players. To me, you needed to add offense. I don't feel like you added offense. I guess Ahmed Rosario, but, I mean, he has like a 3% walk rate. I mean, he either gets a hit or he doesn't. I mean, so it's like, yes, he's hitting 302, but he's on base 30% of the time. Whereas another guy might be hitting 250, but he's on base 36% of the time. Does that make sense? So, I mean, to me, I just don't think this team added offense like the Dodgers fans think they did.
No, and my take on Kiermaier is the defense. And you're right, flexibility. Now we have all this flexibility. Kike, Kiermaier, Edman, Rojas. You got Chris Taylor when he comes back.
Yeah.
Is Page's going to be your center fielder? Is he going to move to right field? Does that mean Hayward? You know, it was an interesting move for them defensively. They did not add offense. If that's what they did not add offense.
They didn't need defense to me though. They already had. I mean, Outman's a massively plus defender in center. I mean, I don't see where Kiermaier's a better. Why is he better than Outman?
I can't answer that because Outman is a known asset now. If you look at it that way, you have a season last year. You have
if
what
you're
he's doing
going defense only, that's my point.
Yeah, well, you know how I feel about Edman defensively. I think he could be one of the top center fielders in all of baseball, I think, the way he plays. Yeah, I don't know. Interesting moves in terms of we didn't add offense, but was there offense to be added? Who did the Dodgers, I don't know who that would have been. Obviously,
did we make ourselves better
Luis
defensively?
Roberts, right? No one wanted him.
Did we make ourselves better defensively?
In some ways, yes. In some ways, I can't answer that until we see the product.
Right. Like, in what ways do we make ourselves better defensively? Would be my question.
Flexibility.
Let's say Rojas gets healthy.
Well, then you've given yourself a lot of flexibility in a lot of different positional lineups you could do with that. That's the only answer I have, and I've thought about that today.
So Eddie Sutton, this is kind of my point to that. Eddie Sutton every year, you know Eddie Sutton very well, Coach. Hall of Famer at Oklahoma State forever. Creighton. Started actually as a high school coach in Oklahoma, in Tulsa, just an awesome, Arkansas forever. So he would start the year every year and he'd go, oh, we're going to be 12 deep. We're going to be 12 deep. We're going to go 12 deep. And sure as heck, in November, we'd be 12 deep, and then we'd lose to UT Pan American. And the next game, we were 6 deep. And by the time the NCAA tournament rolled around, we were 5 deep. So it was one of those deals. Yeah, so does versatility and depth and bench play, does that win you playoff games? Well,
let's be honest with ourselves, and I think that's where a lot of this craziness is. It hasn't won us playoff games.
That's kind of where I'm at. I don't mean to be Debbie Downer. I'm kind of wanting to have a real conversation here. I mean, I get the versatility and depth, but how does that help you win a playoff game? The team that has the better players that perform the best are the teams that win playoff games, not the teams that have 4 more players sitting on the end of the bench that are better than your 4 more players on the end of the bench, in my opinion.
And you are saying out loud what I was thinking all day long. Like, you look at the moves, and so we got flexibility, but I can't, I really cannot explain it, what some of these moves were in terms of, I understand the pitching moves.
Yeah,
I get that.
Yeah.
I even get the Rosario move. He played with us. He's a 4. Now, he didn't even make the playoff roster last year. I understand that.
Well, he is hitting over 300, which not very many guys, that's another guy that can hit 300 in our lineup.
Yes, but
he can accumulate hits.
I think if you go back, I don't understand the Tommy Edman and the Kiermaier move. I have no answer for that. And I've thought about that a lot today. Yeah. Knowing that when you told me we were doing this tonight, I've thought about that. I have no answer for that. I understand the pitching move. I understand the guys we traded. I do not get those 2 moves, and I would love for somebody to fill me in that has more intimate knowledge of that. Other than that, maybe there was no one else out there to get. So, or were they guys that were just thrown into the deal? Those are questions I would love to know myself.
Yeah, he's squarely been. I know he had the 5.4 WAR season a couple years ago, and he's played good defense at second base and shortstop. Again, he's played 44 games in center, and he's been a below-average offensive player. And so to me, Miguel Rojas, if Miguel Rojas gets healthy, I think you hit the nail on the head. It's I think this may be an indication. Although the Dodgers, I think, have liked Edman. They've liked Tommy Edman for a long time. This is the type of guy they like. They like the really great athlete, the guy that can play a million different places. So I think this is a guy, I think just when he became available, they've always liked him. So they went and got him. And then Kiermaier, you're not losing anything. Ryan Yarbrough, he'd already DFA'd. And so, really you didn't have to give away anything to go get him. And then Jack Flaherty, obviously, that was a situation to where, in my opinion, the Dodgers didn't want to give away Dalton Rushing. So Garrett Crochet was out. I think it came down to that. So you go down to the next guy. And I just hope for the Dodgers' sake that he's the Jack Flaherty of the first half of this season and not the Jack Flaherty of the last 2 years. Now, I can remember when I was 16 and we went to look for cars with Dad, and I was like, the first used car I saw, I was like, oh, my God, I want that car. It's going to be awesome. And he goes, no, that car's not nice. I'm like, Dad, that car's awesome. He goes, once the newness wore off of that, trust me, you would not like that car. Does it make sense? That's what the trade deadline is to me. So I just hope that Jack Flaherty is the Jack Flaherty that he's been this year and not the Jack Flaherty he's been the last 2 years.
Completely agree. Again, I have been following this, and that's why I don't get involved in these discussions, because we cannot predict what was going to happen.
Right.
Dodger fans wanted high-end marquee names to come off the board.
I wanted Garrett Crochet.
As a lot of people did. But like realistically, and I wish I could ask the people that was realistically that going to happen, and were the Dodgers willing to give up realistically what was needed for that guy? The Padres set the market by giving up all these guys. I mean, I think a guy who's put out their farm system now is going to be 27th in all of baseball. Now, a lot of people would say, forget your farm system. They're unknown assets, and you're getting known assets for that. I understand what the Padres are doing, but I think the Dodgers thought too highly of Dalton Rushing, number one. And the Dodgers weren't going to get this high-end marquee name. And I think Flaherty Jack was like the one guy.
Yep. They had to do it. They absolutely had to do it.
And he gives them another arm to throw out there. But you're not going to get the high-end marquee. Again, I want to ask the question, why do we think as Dodger fans everybody's going to give us the high-end marquee players? Yeah, and especially with this third wild card, Casey, the third wild card changes everything, because
I've been saying that since it happened, no doubt.
Yeah, if you're sitting 2, 3, 4 games out of that third wild card and you go ahead and give your top ace and a top positional player, your fan base is going to lose their minds.
No doubt.
Great that we're giving these prospects, but prospects are prospects. And they're unproven. And I just, sometimes as Dodger fans, I think we want the world, like everybody to do exactly what we say, and that's not always going to happen. Yeah. So that's kind of where I am. And you're right. It's like the trade is like a used car. Yeah, I'm completely on board with that. I was not excited about this trade deadline, other than I was interested to see what would happen. But I was a little bit taken, like,
you're saying going into it, you weren't. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, I'm not surprised that this is what we got.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Jack Flaherty is an interesting situation, because to the Tigers, he was 1,000% a rental. He was likely not going to stay with them. But to the Dodgers, he's kind of not, because I think if you had to go to Vegas right now and put down odds as to will he re-sign with the Dodgers, kind of like Tyler Glass now, I think you would probably put down a lot of money that he's going to re-sign with the Dodgers if the Dodgers want him because he pitches well. So it's kind of interesting with Flaherty that I think he's squarely a rental to them, but not necessarily a rental to the Dodgers, which only adds to the value of what that trade did for the Dodgers.
Agree. And also to go back to what I was talking about, the thing that had me on my edge of my seat, and my brother Jeff we were texting all day long. He goes, please tell me Pages is not going to be involved in any of these deals. Yeah. And
they were not going to get rid of any of their major league ready pieces. I love that aspect of it.
Yes, and my brother was like, please keep convincing me of this, because my brother was like, we can't lose Pages. And I'm like, I have not once heard Pages' name from anybody that is in the know about Pages going. So that was what I was on my edge of my seat about. Yep.
Brett Rose, good evening. Thank you so much for joining. Craig, thank you so much for joining. Sammy Boy Smith, what a wonderful day. Happy deadline day, y'all. Brett Rose, today really helped this year's team in the future by keeping most of the prospects. I agree, and I'm so happy for Trey Sweeney. I'm just so pumped. Miguel Vargas, I am so happy for him. That's another guy. The Dodgers lost the best offensive player out of the whole crop, out of this whole deal. Miguel Vargas, I just hope that he goes in a situation to where he's valued, he's appreciated. It's not, hey, if you don't go 3 for 3, you're not playing the next day. Dodgers fans aren't just criticizing and critiquing every time that he takes a left-right step, which that's not to say anything negative against the Dodgers fans. That's just to say when you go get Shohei Ohtani, that's what happens to your team. And the guys that suffer for that are the marginal players like Miguel Vargas, because it adds a tremendous amount of pressure on everything that they do. We've already seen that with like a James Outman and Andy Pages and Miguel Vargas, all these guys coming up. And so I think Miguel Vargas is maybe the most underrated part of this whole trade deadline, because I think the Dodgers probably lost the two best offensive players out of all the position players between him and Trey Sweeney.
You're right. I love Miguel Vargas, and Dodger fans, there's no in between. We got to bring Miguel Vargas up. We bring him up. He doesn't hit. He didn't produce. Send him back down. Why? Miguel Vargas, I would love to see what Miguel Vargas would do regardless, even in a Dodger uniform, 550 at-bats. Yeah, I think he would produce. I think we expect too much of these guys. We clamor for them to come up, and when they do in their 30 at-bats and they don't produce, he didn't produce. He couldn't handle the pressure of being a Dodger, blah, blah, blah. Miguel Vargas I hope he goes to Chicago and just rakes all season long, because I think that's the type of player You're right. I think Miguel Vargas, when I saw Miguel Vargas was involved in that deal, my heart broke, because I'm like, dude, this dude could really hit a baseball, and he's got the bloodlines with his father. Yeah. So, but there's no in between with Dodger fans. You either love our prospects and want to give them and trust in them and be patient, or you're a fan that bring these prospects up and they don't hit. It's like, we don't need them anymore. They couldn't handle the stress. So it's tough. So I hope Miguel Vargas, you're right, goes and does what he's supposed to do and hits and shows people like, dude, you got rid of a really good player.
Like Michael Busch did. I can't tell you how many people told me, well, Michael Busch didn't take advantage of his opportunity. I'm like, what opportunity? I mean, I know Miguel Vargas got all that runway last year, but he did it with a broken hand. Yes. And then by the time that he actually was healed up, there were so many different things that had changed in his swing. He was behind the 8 ball so much, it had snowballed on him to the point to where even a dude that's as chilled and relaxed as he is still couldn't figure that out mentally. So, I mean, I just can't tell you how many DMs and comments I got that, well, Michael Busch can't hit. He proved he can't hit, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, I mean, if you say so. So, and it's not like he's like the greatest hitter of all time, but he definitely is a very good major league hitter, an offensive player that the Dodgers, if you could figure out a way somewhere to put him, they could use that offense. I don't know where they would use the defense, obviously, but they could use that type of offense that he has. I think Miguel Vargas will go and do the same thing, and I think Trey Sweeney will be a good major league player. So, I mean, I think, again, this is – I love these trades. We say this all the time on Dodgers Daily. Nobody promotes moving these guys if they're never going to get a chance at the major league level, or if they're going to get a chance like James Outman got this year, like his 36 games, and then all of a sudden everybody dumps on you, and now you're getting a game every 3 games, and if you go over, people are wanting to kick it. Okay, then move the guy. Let him go to Pittsburgh or somewhere where he can have every day at bats and become the player that he's actually capable of being. The worst case scenario for any player is to be in James Outman's situation, Miguel Vargas' situation, to where you're not getting opportunity, and then every time you go over, fans just want to dump on you, and there's no way to get comfortable and to be yourself. At that scenario, move the guy. Get him out of here. Let him go somewhere else and get somebody for him.
Casey, exactly. Everybody wants this. Everybody loves talking about the Dodgers have a top 10 farm system. We love talking about that. We love the prospects that we have, but we don't want to give them a chance. Right. And that's the hardest thing about being a Dodger fan, when you love these prospects and you want to be able to be patient with them. And then you've got everybody blasting you, calling you, you love the prospects too much. But yet they're the same people that say, I love having the farm system. We're top 5, top 10. Sure. You can't have it both ways. You either bring these dudes up and be patient with them and trust in the process, or you're right. Let's move them for what we correct for better
win now pieces. Win now pieces.
Yes, but you can't have it both ways. Like I'm tired of people wanting to being on the fence with that stuff.
Yes, that's exactly where I'm at, and that's the only time I get fired up is when people are like, call me like a prospect hugger, because I couldn't be any opposite. I mean, it's like there's nobody that wants these guys. There's nobody who wants Ryan Ward and Drew Avens moved more than I do to get a chance to be somewhere else and not in Oklahoma City. That's really the only thing that fires me up about that. So there's nobody happier for Trey Sweeney today. Miguel Vargas, Tyrone Lorenzo, who I had a chance to interview in the offseason. I've communicated with him probably 20 to 25 different times. He is just a wonderful young man, switch hitting catcher. Couldn't be more excited for him. Let's face it, you just called up Hunter Fiducia, which, to be honest with you, I hope Hunter's not watching this and I hope if he is, he gets the context of this. There were 2 players to be named later in the first trade. I honestly hope he's one of them. And I mentioned that whenever they brought up Hunter Fiducia, the first thing I told you they were going to do is probably DFA him and then they're going to trade him and get whatever they could out of him, and then he gets a major league chance. I think that's why they brought him up. Lo and behold, there's 2 players to be named later, and I really do think he will be one of them. And so now he got brought up to be a major leaguer. Now he's going to be somebody that other teams will want because you showed that you believed in him enough to actually bring him up to become a major leaguer. So couldn't be happier for him. And so that's an interesting situation too.
Yeah, I mean, you hit everything I would say. We could sit here and discuss prospect hugging. Okay, that's great. I love our farm system. I could be a prospect hugger then, if that's how they want to, if that's what they want to call me. I love our farm system, and I would rather have the farm system we have than doing what the Padres are doing and dropping down to the bottom half of the minor league system for these guys. And you can't have it both ways, Dodger fans. You either got to trust our prospects and believe in them and give them an opportunity, or stop being so excited about this great farm system. And that's just my take on it. And I'll die on that hill. So
yeah, one of my boys, Gus Varlin, got DFA today. I saw that one coming. I mentioned that on our show the other day. Nick Ramirez, that does not surprise me whatsoever. He got DFA'd. Now, that's not for the 26. That's just to make room on the 40-man. Yeah. You still have to have corresponding moves on the 26-man roster to get Kiermaier and all these other guys and Jack Flaherty on the 26-man roster. So that's just to clear the room on the 40-man roster. That does not surprise me at all. Gus Varlin, this is great for him. People think, oh, you get DFA, that's a sad deal. No, for Nick Ramirez and Gus Varlin, this is a celebration, just like I was talking about with Hunter Fiducia, because Gus Varlin was never going to get a chance again with the Dodgers. So now what's going to happen is there's a 7-day window that he can be traded, and somebody will pick up Gus Varlin. This dude throws 98 miles an hour, and he has a dirty slider, and he's shown at the major league level that he can have success. He had 7 good outings with Milwaukee after being picked up in the Rule 5, had 1 bad outing after getting hurt, coming back off injury, and then got returned to the Dodgers. We've seen his stuff play up at the major league level. He's had spotty time. Gus Varlin will get picked up. So will Nick Ramirez. This DFAing these 2 guys is a blessing for them because they will get picked up by another major league club and be on a major league roster, in my opinion, for the rest of this year. So you see the DFA thing and you're like, oh, that's terrible for them. Actually, it's really good.
Yeah, especially if you're a Dodger. I mean, how long did it take Yohan Ramirez to get picked up by the Red Sox? I hope I'm saying his name right. I mean, it was a day. They didn't waste any time. Yeah, I mean, if you're a Dodger and you get DFA'd, you're going to get picked up immediately.
Yep, no doubt.
Everybody wants the Dodger-type guys. So, yeah, I think Gus Varlin's going to be perfectly fine.
How about Landon Knack? Is he still up? He is not, Roy, and this Flaherty deal makes it really difficult for him to have any kind of runway. There's another guy that, hey, if you're going to block him, and I know that you need depth and all that, why not move him for a major league ready piece now? That's kind of my point with the way that the Dodgers do business. Why time out, you're like Miguel Vargas. They time Miguel Vargas out to the point to where, and I know that we got Jackson Ferris and Zaire Hope that are fantastic players, but this trade deadline right here just goes to show the Dodgers would have been way better off if they had traded Michael Busch earlier and gotten major league ready pitching or position players for Michael Busch instead of two guys that, as great as they are still 2, maybe 3 years away from helping the big club because, Coach, you know as well as I do, this is a pressure cooker right now. You got to win that. It's like that 1-and-1. What's the hardest free throw of the 1-and-1, Coach? It's the first one, right? Yeah, you got to win that first championship, man. That first one's a pressure cooker.
Yeah, and we've talked about this quite a bit. I think Dodger fans are uptight and nervous, and we've spent a ton. I should say they've spent a ton of money.
Yes.
And it's all to win a World Series. And every year it seems like we're in the hunt and we don't get there. And we see these other teams. I mean, I think that the thing that killed us was seeing the Diamondbacks in the World Series last year. I think that was a gut punch for Dodger fans. And I think that's where you're seeing Dodger fans kind of losing it a little bit because we want to be in the World Series so bad. We've spent the money. We have the players. And I think people are leery, nervous. I mean, we talked about this, I think, the last time we were on. It's easy to sit here, and I know this series tonight with the Padres is massive. It's, you lose 3, you could be up 3 games right now, but it's not going to be the same feeling sitting on my couch watching this series than when it comes down to the playoffs. it's not going to be that same nervousness. And I think that's where we're at as Dodger fans. We're nervous.
We are. We definitely are. Coach, some more comments here. Biggio stays until Freddie gets back. Yep. Robert stated that Ryan will get one more start, not going anywhere for now. Yang Yi, thank you so much for going. Jay, Edman is still going to be on the IL for another week to 10 days. Yep. That's another thing about Edman. 44 games in center field. He is a below-average offensive player, and he has not played at all this year. I'm probably the only human being on earth that thinks this way. I don't get it. I don't understand where he's where on the field is he an upgrade?
I'm with you then.
Especially considering he hadn't played all year.
There's two of us. My brother Jeff even said the same thing. He goes, "You realize he hasn't played yet," and I think he's only rehabbing in Double-A right now.
Yeah,
and DHing only if I read that article correctly. So yeah, I'm with you, and I'm willing to take all the heat and flack from people saying that, like, what are you talking about? But you're right. He hasn't played. He's DHing. He's in Double-A right now. So the Dodgers either see something way in the future with this guy, and they've seen something that they really like. But you're right. It didn't make sense.
Yeah,
I'm with you.
To me, it didn't. But like I said, I'm sure we are way on an island on that deal. And I think a lot of it is fans were just so antsy just to get somebody. Like you go. The reason why you get into bad car deals is because you want to go buy a car, and it's like, I got to buy a car tonight. The only way that you're going to get a good car deal is if you're willing to walk your ass out that office and go, hey, I don't like that deal. Here's what I'm willing to do. I'm going to pay this amount of money for this interest rate and this amount of years. You either take that or I'm gone.
Casey, my wife is hearing this. That's me to a T with buying a car.
Yeah.
I'm like, we're buying a car today and we're going to do it. And my wife is like, no. We're not doing that. Stacey always like, she's the voice of reason, but you're right. That's how we were as Dodger fans. Like this trade deadline, imagine if the Dodgers made like one move and it wasn't this spectacular move. The place Dodger fans would have gone crazy.
Yeah.
So,
Is Kopech better than Michael Peterson? Is he better than Brusdar Graterol? Is he better than Ryan Brazier? I'll say this, he hasn't been. That's all. I mean, he might end up being, and I know people are saying, hey, get him in the Dodgers. That's all ifs. But to this point, he hasn't been. I mean, that's kind of my point there.
His whip right now is 1.3, almost 1.4 right now.
Yeah, he has control issues.
Yep.
And I'm sure we're the only Dodgers show right now with this kind of tint to it at all. That's okay. Not to say that we're not excited about Flaherty and all that. Just having the real conversations about the nuts and bolts as the way that we see it, right?
Yeah, and I think that's what makes this show different and special is we don't sugarcoat it. We talk about the realities.
Yes.
Not what our wants are. We talk about the reality of the exact thing right now. Yes, Kopech might be way better with the Dodgers and Pryor in what we do in our analytics and Kopech, all those guys. But right now, like, I think we should not be super, super excited this guy's going to come in and change everything because you still have Brazier, who I know Brazier.
Hey, maybe he will. Maybe they'll get with the Dodgers and figure it out. Maybe.
We want him to. Like, we're going to be his biggest fans.
Absolutely.
But we have to talk in realities too.
Yes.
Not of ifs and wants. The reality is Kopech has almost a 1.4 whip right now.
Yeah, right.
That's the reality of it. And
I think his ERA is over 5. Is that right?
If not, it's like 4.93.
Yeah.
But I hope he comes in and being a Dodger changes things. I hope that's what happens. I hope he has a whip of 0.9, as we go into the playoffs. That's my hope.
And I think a lot of people are thinking that he has the type of mix and the type of stuff that the Dodgers work with the best, so I can understand all of that. Hey, Craig Osterberg says Vesia needs rest, also not pitching well the last two outings. Robert said Muncy has to control his own pain tolerance. MWG, thank you so much. Vesia velo down from 94.95 to 90. Yeah, so he needs rest. Kiermaier's an elite center fielder. My argument with that is he's a way below average offensive player. And I don't think he's better defensively than James Outman. And that's kind of – so my point to that is you didn't upgrade. So, I mean, to me, the trade deadline's about upgrading. I've said it a couple times. If you just want to throw defense out there and say, hey, in center field and tell your center fielder whatever offense you give is a bonus, you already had that guy in James Outman. Kiermaier's not going to be a better defensive outfielder than James Outman. So I just don't see where that's an upgrade. And I think – the upside part of that aspect is with James Outman.
Agreed. You're not going to change my opinion on Outman as a center fielder. I've watched him firsthand multiple times play center field, and he is an elite center fielder.
Yeah.
And if you want
he's
to
definitely better than Paez. I agree with you there, Shiva. He's definitely. I mean, but we've been saying for how long that Paez needs to be in right field.
Yeah.
We've been saying that all year, right? I think the Dodgers made that statement pretty clear today, didn't they?
Yeah, I think we've talked about that almost every show.
Yeah.
But
I think they agreed with us today.
yeah, and it's like if you want to compare nuts and like Outman and Kiermaier, like what's the difference in terms of hitting production? I'd rather take Outman. He's got a little bit more pop, doesn't he? Like, I'd rather take that.
More upside.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jay says Edman's better than Kike or Taylor defensively. He is not better than Miguel Rojas. So that's the position player that he would be. So if Mookie Betts comes back healthy, Miguel Rojas comes back healthy, so who's Tommy Edman play for? Do you want him to play over Miguel Rojas? Do you want him to play over Mookie Betts? Do you want him to play over Kevin Kiermaier in center field? So it's not about is he better than Kike or Chris Taylor, of which, again, I'm going to say, if you're having to rely on your bench in the playoffs, something's not going right. I mean, if you're 9 players and the starting pitchers and the relief pitchers that you're putting out there aren't getting it done, and you feel like you're having to resort to a Tommy Edman to win a game let me say that again. You're having to resort to a Tommy Edman to come into a game and win a game for you in the playoffs. What kind of position are you in at that point?
Exactly, and let's not forget, Rosario did not make the playoff roster last year. So, you're right. I mean, you hopefully your studs are healthy, and you could put the guys on your roster that you think are going to be great pieces late innings, maybe.
Yeah,
I mean that's the only thing I see is late inning defensive stuff. That's all I see from this, and maybe that's what they were doing it for. I don't know. I don't have those answers. But.
Yeah, Yang Yi makes a good point. Addition of Rosario, Edman, and surging Lux, Dodgers' bottom lineup is better. I would say Edman does not make the bottom of your lineup better at all. Miguel Vargas is a better offensive player than Tommy Edman, no doubt about it in my mind. And then Ahmed Rosario is hitting over 300, but then he also walks like at 3%, and he gets on base like 32% of the time. So, he gets base hits, but he doesn't get on base. And so I think the average is a little bit deceiving, and I think that's why he wasn't on the postseason roster last year.
Yeah, and I hope people
And he's
understand.
going to be platooned, and I think that he's not going to hit as well when he's not getting everyday playing time.
Yeah, and I think we keep forgetting now. Lux is starting to figure it out and see the Lux of old that we saw. Dodger fans, let's all hope they all do everything we hope. Let's hope they become these studs and lead us to whatever the World Series and become great pieces of this.
Yeah, no doubt.
And I hope people don't think that's not what the direction we're going. I'll tell you, and I've said this multiple times, and Casey, I think you were the same way. If you put on the Dodger uniform, we're going to be all in on the Dodgers.
1,000%.
I'm not against any of these guys. Once they put on the white and blue and the red number on that jersey, we're Dodger fans through and through. I bleed Dodger blue. I've done it for 50 years, and if you're a Dodger, I'm all in. Yeah. So I hope they produce and play well.
GI says, ask the Red Sox whether Steve Pearce helped them win the World Series. It's the guys you never see that can help you win. On occasion, we remember those guys because it's improbable. But I would say 99% of the time, the team that has the better players, the better pitchers, the better relievers, the better 9 starters, those are the teams that go out and win baseball games. Now, over 162, the depth matters. We've seen that time and time again. But in a 3-game series, if you're having to rely on your 4th bench piece to come in a game, something, again, is not going right.
Well, Casey, if one of these guys is going to reincarnate and become Mickey Hatcher, then I'm all for it. But, Mickey Hatcher was a special guy off the bench. So, I'll take a Mickey Hatcher type moment, but I don't know if that's going to happen.
Delirium 9 with 60 days left in the season. There's very little time to ramp up Betts, Edman, Muncy, and Yamamoto. That's a good point there. No doubt about that. Nando 390, they could have traded for top players instead of Freeman Hort's prospects until they're 30. That's my point. I want to Crochet.
Yeah.
But
who were the top end guys we could have got? I'd love to
Crochet. I think if they would have put the right package together, the White Sox would have moved Crochet.
Okay. Who else though? But who else other than Crochet? Who were the top end guys? Luis Robert is not a top end guy to me.
Yeah, I've said that a couple times.
Who else would have been a top end guy to move prospects for other than Crochet?
Well, Tarek Skubal.
Yeah, but I didn't see the Tigers wanting to let that one go.
Tanner Scott.
Well, the Padres gave up everything for him for sure.
Yeah, But if the Dodgers would have slow played like they did the White Sox, I think they probably would have done the same thing to the Marlins. So I just think the Dodgers didn't want to give up their major league ready pieces, and because of that, they got a whole bunch of guys that have a whole lot of question marks to them. Like every player they have.
I hope people see this. You don't want to hoard prospects, but yet you get accused of that all the time. You just said, let's get rid of some of these prospects.
That's probably the most disappointing part of this to me is you still have all these guys that have no runway to the major leagues. And the Dodgers still didn't get Garrett Crochet or, in my opinion, improve their position player side of the ball at all, because I think they already had plenty of versatility, and they didn't make their offense any better. And then they still didn't give a path for any of the prospects that need a pass. So
so I think what everybody should be is I'm the prospect hugger and you're the realist over there. So I think that's what should be out there, right?
That's fine. And hey, I hope it all works out. The Dodgers obviously have the best roster in baseball. Here's what I'm trying to say. If the Dodgers are going to win a World Series, it's going to be because Shohei Ohtani, Freddie Freeman, Will Smith, Mookie Betts, Tyler Glasnow, Yoshinobu Yamamoto, and whoever else decides to be an ace pitcher. It's going to be because those guys perform, and those guys are better players than any other team has on their roster. If those guys don't perform, it doesn't matter what these other guys do.
Casey, you hit the nail on the head, and Dodger fans forget this. Me too. Freeman did not hit in the playoffs. Mookie did not hit in the playoffs.
Right,
Will
and
Smith
the Dodgers lost.
Kershaw, our superstar pitcher, gave up a ton in the opening game to the Diamondbacks. We seem to always forget that, and we never bring that up because those guys are our superstars. But if our superstars are not getting it done, the guys that we love and trust, we don't have a chance. If Shohei and Freeman and Betts and Will Smith and Tio, they don't get it done, we're not winning a World Series. And Glasnow doesn't pitch well. We're not going to win a World Series. We have to have our superstars be superstars. And that hasn't happened the last couple of years.
Hey, Coach, you got any final thoughts? Austin's texting. We're going to bring in Austin Brubaker here in a second. Told you I'd keep you for about 45 minutes. I always love it when I get a chance to get you on this show. There's Austin right there. So, Coach, any final thoughts? This probably looks kind of weird on the screen here, but that's okay. We've got kind of you and Austin both here.
Austin's on. The man's a stud. He's gonna fill everybody in on the real stuff that's going on, other than the fan and me. But listen, Dodger fans, we're gonna be. Think they're going to become. Go Dodgers. Austin, kill it, brother.
I'm doing great. How are you doing, Casey? At least this time you can actually hear what I'm saying. I'm assuming that the people in the comments can actually hear me this time. Last time we tried to do this, a bunch of gremlins got into the system, and I don't believe anybody could hear me. No, today is all right. So today, obviously, I'm sure you guys have dug into it. The Dodgers trade deadline day. It was a big, exciting day. Who are the Dodgers going to get? Are they going to get the top guys on the market? Not necessarily. And I'm going to dive into some of my thoughts as far as what the Dodgers are trying to do. My guess is just looking at everything, and especially looking at some of the prices of everything, which we can talk about some of the implications of that. Prices during this trade deadline were astronomical. You can look at the Yusei Kikuchi, what the Astros had to give up to get a mid-tier type of starting pitcher that I believe just has control through this season. I don't believe he has any control through next season. You can see what the San Diego Padres gave up for Tanner Scott, in which they gave up a lot of guys that have a ton of potential. I remember how good of a player Graham Pauley was last season. There's a high demand for a lot of these guys. And you have a small number of teams that are actually in selling mode, which created a high price point that a lot of teams had to meet. And what was apparent during this trade deadline is the Dodgers were fairly reluctant to meet that sort of high price, that sort of high peak. Now, you could say, hey, the Dodgers totally should have gone for that, and they should have gone all broke for guys. I don't necessarily know if there was the guy that they wanted to go all in on or felt the most comfortable with. You could say there was a Garrett Crochet who was phenomenal insane talent, would have fit in with this Dodgers team really well. He is not without some concerns to that profile, and I'm sure that came up, and especially compounding with the price that even a rental reliever costs during this trade deadline. The best rental reliever on the market costs some of your top guys. That set a bar incredibly high for this Dodgers team to where they didn't feel comfortable, especially compounded with Garrett Crochet and some of the questions about his innings limit that he has. That doesn't mean that the Dodgers couldn't have helped him reach some of those innings limit, but especially when there's talk about him wanting potentially an extension going forward, there's real concern that the Dodgers had around there. I don't believe that the Tigers were willing to trade Tarek Skubal unless it was with Baltimore, because Baltimore is a little bit more position player heavy and they were looking for the top of the line front guy. But the Dodgers weren't without some moves. I think if you look at this Dodgers team right now, obviously it is injured. It is battered. There's a lot of stuff going on with this Dodgers team. They also have guys that they believe in, that they believe are going to come back and get healthy, and they're going to help this team. Doesn't mean that you should be relying on this team, and some of these moves indicate that they have some sort of alternative option in case something happens with those teams. But ultimately, this Dodger, as I was listening to a little bit earlier, this Dodgers team and the way this season is going to be decided is not going to be by the guy that you added at the deadline. It's going to be how your stars actually impact during the postseason. So let's dive into the players that the Dodgers actually got. They made a trade. The big one is for a starting pitcher, Jack Flaherty from the Detroit Tigers, somebody who has not performed as well during previous seasons. However, this season has been one of the best starting pitchers in the game of baseball. Just looking through some of the numbers that he has, he strikes out. You have some of the numbers pulled up right now.
No, I know you've got them all. No, okay. You're the numbers guy.
Okay, yeah. So just looking at some of the numbers that he has this season, Jack Flaherty, just absolutely ridiculous what he's been able to do. Detroit, which shout out to Detroit for being able to help develop him and transition him. And 106 2/3 innings pitched, 2.95 ERA. The expected ERA, exactly the same. His FIP is 3.11 and his expected FIP is 2.57, and going down to his Sierra numbers, it's 2.69. All of the indicators say this is a starting pitcher, performed well, should continue to perform well because he strikes out a lot of batters. He strikes out at them at about a 32% clip, and his walk percentage is less than 5%. Just ridiculous type of stuff Jack Flaherty has been able to do. He is a 1-year type rental, and what I find really
I think he'll re-sign with the Dodgers. That's the interesting part. I think he was a rental with the way the Tigers were seeing it, like they were going to lose him.
Yes.
But I think for the Dodgers, he's not a rental because he's from Burbank and he's going to re-sign with them.
So this is a really interesting conundrum for the Dodgers, because I believe what the Tigers' plan was with Jack Flaherty, obviously they had a high bar that they wanted teams to meet in order to trade Jack Flaherty. And we'll talk about the return. I'll give my thoughts into that as well. But they also had a little bit of flexibility, because I believe if Jack Flaherty was not traded, the Tigers would have, after the season, presented him with the qualifying offer, in which case he would potentially sign for $20 to $22 million for 1 year with the Tigers, or enter free agency. And if he enters free agency, the Tigers get a draft pick. Could that be the exact same game plan that the Dodgers do, in which case they could get a compensation pick for a Jack Flaherty if he does not sign him? In which case you're lessening the prospect burden that you're entering. So either you get Jack Flaherty, who's been one of the best pitchers in baseball for 1 year and 20-ish million, or you get a draft pick. I think that's a really interesting conundrum and something that was appealing to a Jack Flaherty. Now, it didn't cost nothing. It did cost a couple of players within this farm system, a couple of players that you could see potentially having some issues making it to the big league level just because of the talent and the Dodgers wanting to prioritize a lot of at-bats to veteran players, which we'll get into that in just a minute as far as the additions that they also added. Tyrone Lorenzo has been somebody that I've been following along with the entire season. Leary, yes. Bama Leary. Leary's been on the team for quite a while, and I've seen a lot of growth for him. It's been years where there's been some really high moments. You saw the series, the walk-off hits that he had against the Beloit Sky Carp. where he had, I believe, back-to-back days with walk-off hits. You've seen some of the power potential, some of his plate discipline. You've also seen him, because he's 21 years old at the high level, still very young for that level, still very much raw as a prospect, still working on a lot of things, preventing some of the wild pitches from all the crazy stuff that the Great Lakes Loons pitching staff has provided. You're still seeing him work through how to attack against high A pitching. So he's still very much a work in progress, and his timeline is far back as compared to some of the other catching prospects in the system, like a Diego Cartaya or like a Dalton Rushing. So he's going to take a little bit more time to grow and develop into the type of prospect that he can be. However, the Dodgers do have a lot of depth at the catching position in this system, and they're going to have to prioritize at least some at-bats. They can't keep all of these guys forever. And so with a Tyrone Lorenzo, he's not on the 40-man roster, probably something that the Tigers were prioritizing because they also want to keep roster spaces open as well. The Dodgers decided to trade Tyrone. I think they are really high on a Dalton Rushing, which is why I believe he the other day got a start in left field, which could see the start of the positional versatility to get him to the major league roster. But Tyrone Lorenzo, wish him nothing but the best in Detroit. He'll probably be spending some time in West Michigan in a Whitecaps uniform, which is going to be kind of ugly to see on him, just like it was ugly to see Eddie Leonard in a West Michigan Whitecaps uniform. But it's also exciting for him to continue to that. I think there's going to be more of an opportunity to grow in that system. And then Trey Sweeney as well, shortstop the Dodgers targeted during the offseason. You could have potentially seen him work and try to get an opportunity at the shortstop position. However, they have a guy that they brought over that can play shortstop. You could potentially see them continue with a Miguel Rojas or potentially target either a Ha-Sung Kim or a Willie Adames during the offseason. Perhaps the shortstop role is limited, or the Dodgers are looking at a guy like an Alex Freeland and perhaps prioritizing him as well. Two prospects to get a rental starting pitcher who likely, if he continues on the track that he is on, is going to start a postseason game or postseason games for this Dodgers team. I think that was well worth it for the Dodgers. I am totally happy with that. I'm glad that they got probably the best starting pitcher that was out there that teams were willing to trade. Which that is, I think that's the big thing. It can be frustrating that the Dodgers didn't get Garrett Crochet, they didn't get a Tarek Skubal, but what was the willingness of those teams to go ahead and trade with them? And was the bar trade every single person in your system plus River Ryan and Justin Robleski? The Dodgers kept both of those guys. They have depth that they can use for starting pitchers that have proven themselves to be really solid, and they added one of the better starting pitchers on the markets to where they're not relying on a Clayton Kershaw, perhaps, or they're not relying on Clayton Kershaw and Walker Buehler, or Clayton Kershaw and a Bobby Miller, who might not be fully quite there. You have your playoff rotation starting to come into form. You have a lot of different options. It's about who's going to be the hottest as we get closer to the postseason.
So Yamamoto comes back, which I've been saying I think he will. He's throwing bullpens this week. So you have Glass now, you have Yamamoto, you have Flaherty, you have Kershaw, you've got Stone. So where does that leave Miller, Robo, and Ryan?
Really good question. And I don't know exactly where that leaves them. But also, I'm not going to, if I'm the Dodgers, I'm not going to leave that up to chance. I'm not going to assume, hey, we're going to have this role for Robo or River Ryan or Clayton Kershaw or whatever during the postseason, because we've seen over the course of the past 100 games where pitchers drop down and
where's
they
it leave
have
Landon
injuries.
Knack?
That's a really good question. And I don't know exactly where that's going to leave those guys during the postseason. But I also know having more arms and having more guys that are going to be available than not is probably a better strategy than having single one of your guys having every single one of your guys be injured.
I just can't support hoarding. I just can't support watching guys in Oklahoma City just so you can say in case somebody gets hurt, we're going to keep this guy from having a great major league career that he could have. I can't do it on a personal level. I just can't do it. I understand the business part of it, but Landon Knack needs to be in a starting rotation for somebody in the major leagues. Bobby Miller eventually when he gets there. He needs to be in a rotation. River Ryan, Justin Robleski, they need to be in starting rotation somewhere. The hoarding part of it that the Dodgers do They don't want to trade prospects, and they don't want to do this and that. And Dodgers fans love it because they go, oh, we didn't have to give up anybody. Well, that means that all those people you didn't have to give up now are hoarded with no chance at having a major league career. I hate that part of it.
Yeah, and I totally get that, and I totally hate that too. I want to see each one of these guys get as much of an opportunity as they possibly can be. The question for the Dodgers right now is, if they're as invested as they're in right now, are you comfortable with having 2 of your playoff games be started by, let's say, a Justin Robleski or a River Ryan? That would be the question that Dodgers fans and the Dodgers organization would have to ask. And right now, I don't know if they are comfortable with that, nor do I think they want to have 4 or 5
I agree with
options.
that. Then move them. Then go get somebody you are comfortable with. Then move them for Garrett Crochet.
So then what happens if Jack Flaherty continues to have back issues and some of the injury issues continue to pop up for a Clayton Kershaw, or Walker Buehler is not able to come back? Exactly. And I think that's exactly what the Dodgers are thinking right there.
And if you go get Garrett Crochet, you have Garrett Crochet. So if you would have went and got River, if you would have dealt somebody like a Robo or a River or a Dalton or somebody like that, you would have gotten a Garrett Crochet and a Jack Flaherty.
Yeah, you could totally do that. But then again, let's say that you go ahead and do that. I think you would still, no matter what, be dealing with opportunity crunch. You'd still be dealing with a lot of
and you still have Landon Knack.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know.
And Bobby Miller.
Yeah, so I think with this, look, from a personal side, I want these guys to be in the big league level. I have a heart for these guys, and I've seen the grind. I've seen the intensity. I've seen how hard these guys have gone through, and they still have the opportunity to earn and make the postseason roster. Let's not forget how good Justin Robleski and River Ryan were against the Houston Astros, which will be a playoff team, will probably make it to the American League Championship if history continues to repeat itself, which it likely will. They always just seem to find a way to win. You can leave whatever comments you want about that, but they pitched incredibly well. And they have the opportunity to earn a spot on the roster. I'm not saying who? And that's the thing, is I'm not saying for this team, for these guys, I'm not saying inherently give Jack Flaherty a playoff spot. I still believe it has to be earned. Okay. I still believe that it has to be earned because we've seen some concerns in previous years. If those concerns continue to rebound, perhaps there is more of an open competition. You're talking about you see
concerns with Flaherty?
I'm not saying that I can see concerns right now, but if those concerns pop up,
you're seeing them in the past is what you're saying.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. And past couple of seasons prior to this one, he was not nearly as effective as he is now. Now he's one of the best pitchers in baseball. And if this continues, yes, I want him starting because that is an upgrade to what you have, because he's one of the best pitchers in baseball. And then you could go out and get Tyler Glass now. Let's say Yamamoto comes back healthy, and then you have Jack Flaherty as well. That is a really good 1-2-3. And then you have Gavin Stone, who has pitched really well this season. It's not mentioning a Clayton Kershaw. You could do piggyback type of outings during the postseason, or you can go out and use your electric bullpen, which you have guys that are coming back that should be healthy. The Dodgers will have a lot of options. Yes, they are hoarding, and I think this is something that every organization selfishly does. And I think this is an unfortunate part of the business. I want to see these guys get opportunities. I'm happy that they are still part of the organization selfishly as a Dodgers fan. But I also think going forward, you have Jack Flaherty. You don't know if he's going to be back next season. If we continue to see the exact same success that we've seen from River Ryan or Justin Robleski this season, I think you could see them have more prominent roles like we've seen from a Gavin Stone. I don't think Gavin Stone, when we were talking about the season, there was a lot of question of whether he would even have a spot during the starting opening day roster. Right. But injuries presented itself and opportunity presented itself. So he was ready to take over for that. And he's proven himself to be one of the better pitchers in the National League and in the game of baseball.
So Glass now, Yamamoto, Flaherty, Kershaw, Stone. Then you have on deck, you have Knack, Robleski, and Ryan.
That's not counting starters. Bobby Miller or Walker Buehler.
Yeah, Bobby Miller, Walker Buehler. So on deck, that's Miller, Robleski, Ryan, Walker Buehler. So that's 9 guys.
and kind of going with the Simpsons softball episode, nothing can happen to all 9 of those guys, right?
So my question is, how are you maximizing Justin Robleski, Landon Knack, River Ryan, Bobby Miller by hoarding them? How are you maximizing their value to the club?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. And for those guys, I'm not saying that this is in the best for them, but the Dodgers have to think about what is the best for the Dodgers.
I'm saying, how's that best for the Dodgers? They're not getting max value out of them. Because like Miguel Vargas, you didn't get hardly any return at all because you let him get too old.
I'm not. We can get into that part of the trade in just a second, but also with these guys, they're just starting their professional careers. There's typically some ups and downs that happen with the journey with a lot of younger pitchers. I'm not saying that there can't or shouldn't be opportunities.
How
for these
valuable
guys
do you think Robo and Ryan are right now?
I think with what they performed and what they put on, they are incredibly valuable. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely they are.
Absolutely they're valuable. And these are some of the players that the Dodgers as a team need to have on their team in order to maintain the roster and the payroll that it takes to supplement superstar level of players. And so they absolutely have a future. They have a role on this Dodgers team going in the future, but it's also an incredibly small sample size at the big league level. There are a lot of up and downs that come at the big league level. And there's a lot of things that you have to learn at every single level that you have to go through. I don't think the Dodgers were willing this season to go through the ups and downs that it takes for a rookie. There's incredible high. I saw the up with the Justin Robleski last postseason. I just don't know if they were willing to take that chance right now, or at least provide additional insurance for that going into a postseason where I think we can both agree there is very high stakes for this postseason for the Dodgers and for the next couple of years. They are incredibly desperate and need to win a World Series. I think that providing a lot of depth and insurance from an organizational standpoint from Andrew Friedman, from his point of view, is probably the correct move.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, hey, we're probably going to have to carry on this conversation tomorrow. The Dodgers are up 5-0 on the Padres. That game is in the bottom of the first inning right now. Kevin Biggio hit a home run. Jason Hayward, Andy Pages had a hit as well. I'm actually not watching it here, but we had a home run. We had a double by Hayward, a home run by Biggio, a base hit by Pages, and then also a base hit by Will Smith and a walk by Shohei Ohtani. 5-0 lead for the Dodgers in the top of the fifth. Hey, Austin, you available tomorrow?
I can be available probably tomorrow evening. I got to go into work tomorrow, but I can do something tomorrow evening.
Yeah, live show tomorrow night, or Wednesday show live.
Oh, yeah, I can do that.
Yeah, 8 o'clock your time, 7 o'clock mine. So, hey, sound good?
Sounds good.
Okay, man. Hey, I greatly appreciate you joining. This has been a whole lot of fun. So until next time, I want to thank everybody for